Hello and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I would like to welcome you guys to episode 29. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2014, and I've been doing quite a bit of knitting this week. Since it is the Knitting Olympics, aka Ravellenics, but whatever. And I don't know, it just feels like I've been doing a lot of knitting. I've been trying hard to get a good start on my boa sweater. So that is, whatever, been the latest obsession. At this point, I've been trying to take pictures every day, and this is the main color, which is Eben in Wool Misa 100%, which I'm just holding. And this is how far I am on the yoke so far. So this is where I'm at, which when I hold it up like so, it doesn't really look like it's a lot. But hey, it's a start. I don't think I got nearly as much knitting time as I was expecting, which is maybe why I'm not like, oh my gosh. But this is, I'm about to start row 42 of 76, and oh, what is it? It is coming together nicely. I can't tell whether or not I have the right tension in my floats for my my apples in this case. So this is the Wild Apples post, excuse me, by Kristen Olsen. And so this is where I am so far. I'm pretty close to another increase row, which is why I decided to put it on 2 circulars instead of just 1. And it's making the knitting a lot easier. When you're knitting color work, you really want to spread out your color, or you really want to spread out your stitches when you make floats. So if you look at my floats here, like it's like the pattern in inverse, you want them to be just right, which in my opinion is that when you're knitting them, you want to have your stitches spread out, and then you cross over and do the float, and then you maybe spread them out once more after you make 1 stitch, and then finish the number of stitches. And in this section right in here, it's a 3-color, they're 3-color rows. So, and you just have like a few stitches in the middle and then a long float. So that is what makes it pretty hard. So I was trying really hard to make sure everything was spread out, but we shall see. It might turn out that blocking cures many sins, but I'm just trying to be careful about making sure things look good. The hardest part of the pattern is yet to come. So this is the book that I'm knitting out of, Poems of Color by Wendy Keel, and there are several different patterns in there. If anyone, there's no way that you can actually grok the pattern. Tilt this correct way. So I am starting that row there. So I think at this point more than halfway done with the chart. And then at row 45 I'll be doing another increase round, and then I go into 4-color rows for a spell. Yeah, so there are 4-color rows in here and in here, so indicated by my expired driver's license. So this book is really interesting. It has the history of the Bohas as well as a variety of patterns. Every motif or whatever, every chart has several different patterns that you can knit from it. So so far I've only done the yoked pullovers, just because I really like yoked pullovers. Cardigans drive me a little batty sometimes. But you can do hats and mittens and jackets, where the color work is actually going whatever, rotated 90 degrees from the yoke, which is more radial sort of design. Let's see, what else? I don't know, so it's been really interesting to knit so far. I finally hit upon the color combination. It took 2 more tries to figure it out. I didn't have to reknit the swatch again for the 4th iteration, but I did rip back half of it. I decided to I decided to change around the colors that they're called for in order to get the right relationship, which means that once I get to that part, I'm probably going to have to carry around a picture of my knitting. So I'm not sure that I'll remember the appropriate order of colors. I also decided that to use 14 colors instead of 15. I decided to incorporate the light blue because I felt that it offered a really good contrast in value between the other colors in the swatch. So I needed, like, since Woolmeister is so saturated, I needed a not saturated color. And that ends up providing the contrast that I need in order to make something look right. And I'm not sure whether or not I'll switch things around a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Or how far I end up getting in the sweater. But so I cast on Friday afternoon. I really didn't get a very good start on it the first day. It turned out that you're supposed to be able to, or since I'm in Eastern time, this meant that I could have cast on at 11 a.m. and I was still finishing up the swatch at that point. So mostly that meant that I didn't end up getting really started till something closer to 4 o'clock because I was ripping out the swatch since I am concerned about yarn. Or what is it? So one of my colors, this one, is, when I weighed it, it was 13 some grams, and it's calling for ½ ounce, and ½ ounce is approximately 15. So this is the problem child. And this is probably the Farn colorway. This is from my Taste of Woolmeister kit. I used this green color in my first Bohas, which is why it is depleted. For the other, I don't think any of the other colors were cases where I was worried about running out of yardage. You really use, excuse me, I'm apparently not keeping it classy today. So all my other colors I'm pretty sure will be, I have an ample amount, because I have somewhere around an ounce to ½ ounce of the rest of them, and with what they were calling for the yoke, it was, and you know what the other thing is that since I'm knitting the smallest size, which in this case is 40 inches, that they gave the same amounts of yarn for the yoke for all of the sizes, so I'm probably going to be fine. Because I don't think they would have changed whether you needed 1/3 of an ounce versus ½ of an ounce versus 1/4 ounce. And I'll be using very little of some colors. So whereas the shades of red and orange are a really big component of the pattern, that's what your eyes are drawn to, it really is many, 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 many shades of gray, which I have liberally substituted blue and teal in for. Because that's what worked. Yeah, no, I suppose I haven't even, I will have to include a picture of my progression of swatches in the blog show notes. So if you guys are following this on YouTube, obviously you get to see it first because it tends to take me a little bit to add in the links and pictures. But if you do want to have links to my projects and see the pictures that I post in addition to what I show on the podcast, like please head over to the blog, which is deepbluerenegade.blogspot.com, and I think you'll find more information there, and it'll be a lot easier for you guys. So I have been noticing that a lot more people have been finding my podcast via YouTube, which is really awesome. I think because of the whole blip on Google, a lot of people are moving to YouTube, and a lot of people are looking for stuff on YouTube. So I am not as popular as knitting in circles, but I think that we're sort of coming to, I think that there's going to be a lot more of a community of YouTube podcasters, which is pretty cool. I'm still not motivated enough to even set up iTunes distribution, but it looks like it might be possible. I don't know, if anyone would prefer to see this on iTunes, I can probably take an afternoon to figure out how to do the redirect magic in order to make that happen. It might turn out that is impossible since I post on YouTube, but hey, you never know. Comment in either YouTube or the blog or on the Ravelry group if you're interested in having me find a way to set that up, since it seems like there's a lot more information and a lot of bright people and tech-savvy people are figuring out how to make it happen. And this week the coffee is, what is it? Espresso Royale, Almond Explosion, I think. No, Almond Avalanche. And so what's interesting about this coffee is that they threw in slices of almonds as they're roasting them. So, like, there's like a pretty significant almond content to this coffee. Hopefully it isn't decreasing the amount of caffeine that I'm getting. And since this was, what would it be? For now, I'm just using half and half. I'm still doing the eat vegan before 6, but in some ways, it's a lot easier to eat vegetarian before 6. Especially when it comes to coffee, there really is hard to get the same amount of satisfaction out of the whatever milk substitutes in comparison to half and half. Like, the problem with the substitutes is that they don't have the fat content, and it's the fat content that really takes down the bitterness, in my opinion. So if someone wants to come up with a fattier version of non-milk dairy substitute, I am all ears, but until that time comes, I'm uninterested, for lack of a better word. Alright, and I do have, sorry, that was like a really big diversion, but hey, whatever, such is life. I also worked on some projects last week, which will not be worked on this week, but I figured I could show you guys. I am in the middle of a row on Walk on the Moon. So this was what had gotten some knitting time in, because I think when I showed it it might have even only gotten, sorry, this much knitting done on it last week, but hey, knitting is knitting. So that this is my Walk on the Moon, which is obviously quite scrunched upon the needles at the moment. Yeah, no, when I'm starting a row, there's no way that I'm gonna sit down and finish a row right now. Let me figure out how to detangle it. And this is out of Woolmeisel Lace in the Pistazi, the ORH negative, and the Chim Chim Chimney colorway. And I am in the section where I have the colors, or I'm alternating between the red color and the blue color. So I have at least one more. Oh, I might have gotten 2 rows done on this since the last time. So it's coming together. It's still beautiful. It's going to be living in a quiet place for the duration of the Knitting Olympics, because I would like to, at the very least, get a very good start on the Bohus. and then when I fail to finish, then then when I fail to finish, I can then go back and finish my other projects. For some reason, I don't understand why it is that I have 3 big projects on the needles at the same time. I guess I'm fickle. I don't know. Or the idea of a crazy challenge required starting something big. Who knows? So that's the story there. And then I did get a little spinning done as well. And it might just be like a couple armfuls of spinning, but you know what? Spinning. So this is the Fat Cat Knits Variegated BFL in the Let's Go Crazy colorway. This is the second of 3 ounces. When I brought this to my 20-something craft night, everyone was oogling over the fiber. So, well, even people who do not knit and spin. So, that was pretty cool. And that was mostly my friend Jen and then Joyody, which I had been podcasting with Joyody on her show, Joy and Smiles. I haven't talked with her about that. Oh well, such is life. I've been trying to convince Joyody to come with me to the Knitting Pipeline retreat, but she's not sure whether or not she wants to come, so pondering. And the deadline to sign up for the Knitting Pipeline retreat is Saturday, the 15th. So if you want to go, you might want to hurry up. It seems like there are going to be a lot of cool podcasters there, which is why I've been thinking about it, and maybe I'll just bite the bullet and go. And maybe it'll be an opportunity to do lots of spinning, like finish my crazy sock yarn. So the plan with the Fat Cat Knits is to do the 3-ply or the Navajo plied sock yarn and then knit myself a pair of nearly identical socks. Maybe see how it goes. And I have my ridiculously small needles, and all I need to do is do the spinning, and obviously my crafting time is all going to the Bohas, so it all belongs to the Bohas this week. Let's see, is there anything else? This one is actually going to turn out pretty short. So today is the 11th, which means that I will be recording again on the 18th of February, which is a Tuesday. I'm not sure when the Olympics end. Obviously I haven't been really on top of the whole, Olympics thing. I hadn't realized that the Winter Olympics are significantly shorter than the Summer Olympics, so the Summer Olympics is definitely a 3-week event. And last time I did 2 pairs of socks because I knew I could easily do 1 pair of socks in 2 weeks, so I was stretching myself a little bit. So the Ravellenics ends, or Ravellenics Knitting Olympics, whatever, ends on February 23rd, which might end up being 3 weeks too. Apparently, me and math aren't going to be getting along today, which is fine. So that would imply that I will be able, so next week I'll still be in the midst of knitting the Bohas, and we'll see how far I get. Who knows? Then my episode after that will be on the last day of February? No. Let me look at a calendar. So, come on, calendar. So then on the 25th, yeah, not even close to the end of February, I will be, I'll give an update as to whether or not I even finished the stupid thing. Who knows? I will be able to fly on this once I get past the color work. The color work is fascinating and addicting, but as I was going through the 3 color rows of the Bohas, obviously it can be a bit of a drag when you have to do that much yarn management, and especially with the 4-color rows. You have to be very careful that your floats are just right. They're not too tight, they're not too loose. And that ends up taking up a decent amount of energy. Oh, you guys had asked about what it looked like for me to be knitting on the bohas and how I'm doing my color work. And I will give you the Wendy Knits disclaimer. Just because I do it that way doesn't mean it's the right way. But it does work for me, and I seem to have had success with it. And I was actually reading the Bohus book, and they were talking about how I was reading the Bohus book, and it turns out that they would have your main color in one hand, and then you would have the rest of your colors in your other hand. And then you would pick or throw depending. So it's sort of very similar to how people suggest you do Fair Isle with one hand throwing and one hand picking. And I am not that good at Continental. I can knit a tube in Continental, so maybe doing a pair of socks or something like that, but I can't purl. It's a little crazy making. So I suppose that I can do a row for the sake of education. What I'm going to be showing here, a little scooch. What I'm going to be showing here, which I don't know whether or not you can even really see what's going on, but hey, such is life. I knit English. I don't know how, oops, almost knit off of one needle and onto the other. I'm now doing the 2 circs thing, which means that I'm going to be doing rows in clumps of half of the stitches approximately. This has, what is it, an odd number of repeats right now, so that means that I don't have the repeats exactly done in half, and I'm looking at my knitting instead of the screen, so I'm not even sure if you can see what's going on. So the hardest float to do when doing 2 circs is the one at the intersection of the needles. So in this case, I'm spreading them out, and then I'm going and I'm making the first stitch. Then I stick my needle in to make the second stitch and spread it out a little bit more. I find that it holds the needle in the right place if I have it already in the stitch. But for cases where I'm going to be doing a purl row immediately, or I'm going to be needing a purl row, so I'm going to have to move the yarn from the back to the front, that doesn't work as well. And then I just drop the yarn and knit. So I've dropped the yarn, I'm knitting across this section, and this is right now only a 2-color section, so it's not too bad. There isn't nearly as much changing over of yarn as other sections, and so now I've reached the end of a particular color, and then I take my yarn, I spread out my stitches, make it nice and long. I already have my needle in the stitch. I stick my needle in the next stitch, I stretch it out a little bit, and then I continue on. And then I'll stick my needle in the next stitch. It's nice because this row doesn't have any purls in it, so that makes it less complicated. Stretch out my stitches. I like to have like maybe about 2 repeats nice and spread out on the needles at a time, and then the rest can be pretty scrunched up. And then I just go around, around, around. So, like, I like to have a decent amount spread out nicely, because you sort of want it to have it in tension underneath as well, because then you're not pulling on your floats underneath it unduly, if that makes sense. Like, you want your floats to be tight as well so that they're still normal stitch size. and I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next on this, or I don't know what the next row is going to be. I'm probably going to be going to a lecture this afternoon, so I will have some good knitting time, and hopefully it'll be an interesting talk. So that's pretty much the story there. So I've done, I don't know, 3 pattern repeats so far, out of the 23. And then it looks a little funny as I'm knitting because I basically have this figure 8 thing going on where I have this cord in the middle, but it seems to work out well enough. And yeah, so that's the story there. I don't know if you guys could see very well what I was doing. I'm not sure that I would want to rotate the camera around, and then it'd be hard to knit like that. Or knit around the computer, who knows. I don't know, if it completely failed, I might be able to give it a shot, so let me know if that was what you were interested in seeing. I think that's everything, so I'll be recording on the 18th, and I hope you guys have a lovely week, and that you aren't stretching, or that you aren't stressing about your Knitting Olympics projects. So, see you later. Bye-bye.